Day 21, Marcel Forest and Bemidj. So the morning was spent trying to figure out if I would be able to make it to something called Angle Inlet in Minnesota, which is the northernmost point in the contiguous 48 states. And even though this is American territory, by land it can only be reached through Canada. In the process, I got to speak to a US border agent and a Canadian border agent. Even though the border post usually is not manned, you just pull up and they have a tablet where you enter all your information and scan the relevant documents, and then you go through, and the same way coming back from Canada into the US. But in the end, it didn't work out because I needed also a PCR test and whatever. It was just a long story, so unfortunately I had to put it off for the next trip. While I was doing all this, I discovered that there are more places like that in America. One is in the state of Vermont, a little town of Olberg, but fortunately they also have a bridge over Lake Champlain, so you don't actually have to cross the border. And the third place like that is the town of Point Roberts in Washington state, and the situation there is really bizarre. The kids, when they go to school on their school bus, they have to cross the border. So when Canada was very concerned about mad cow disease, some kids would have their school lunches confiscated because they had pastrama sandwiches. Or let's say Canada currently does not allow bringing lamb into the country. So if you're trying to bring a bag of dog food and it has lamb as one of the ingredients, it's going to get confiscated. And there is also an urban legend that Point Roberts is a great place for settling the people who are in the witness protection program, because in order to get there, you need to cross both Canadian and American border, and this way the government can better control who gets in and out, and they can better protect the people who are in the witness protection program. And there's actually an official term for places like this. It's called the Penne Exclave. So my next stop was something called Marcel Experimental Forest, which is a swath of woods in Minnesota's Northwoods that contains one of the southernmost bogs in the United States, bogs, B-O-G. And that's a fascinating ecosystem because they take only about 3% of the Earth's territory, but they store about 30% of carbon dioxide. So it's very interesting and very important to try to figure out how they will react to rising temperatures. Will they start storing more carbon dioxide, or will they start releasing it back in the atmosphere? And if you pull out during business hours, one of the scientists will usually be available to give you a short tour. So Jack, who took me around, is a lab assistant, and he is a retired mailman who wrecked over 1 million miles delivering mail through rural Minnesota. And once he retired, he got a degree in environmental studies, and now he works in the lab. So the experiments are basically enclosing patches of bog in these bubbles and then playing around with all kinds of things inside, temperature, humidity, the carbon dioxide levels, to see how they will react to changing environment. And that was very interesting. Stop of the day was a little town of Bemidj, Minnesota, that lies on the shores of the beautiful lake by the same name, the name meaning the Lake of Crossing Waters. And it's a central point of 3 Indian reservations, so it has a lot of monuments and places of interest related to Native Americans. Unfortunately, I got there at the very end of the day, so most places downtown were closed, but it looked like a very cute little place to visit, and especially a very high crime area, as you can see from the sign where local police is prohibiting you from leaving keys in parked cars. And it is also considered to be a birthplace of Paul Bunyan, which is this legendary American folk hero lumberjack that went around all the northern states pretty much cutting down every forest he came across, together with his trusted helper, Babe the Blue Ox. It has a monument to them, and I think it's supposed to be the biggest Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox monument in America.